KD7M&I here, and today I will be showing you how to build the KD5 IVP Backpacking Yagi antenna, which is what I'm holding up here. This antenna is for use on the 2-meter band and is extremely lightweight and collapsible, which makes it perfect for applications such as backpacking. So when I take this out backpacking, I can hook it up to my handheld radio and get a lot further than just using the rubber duck antenna. Now the reason why it's so lightweight is it uses for the beam and an arrow shaft, and then for the elements, which we have 3 here, it uses 0.025 music wire, which is really thin and lightweight, so that's probably why it's difficult for you to see on this video. But let's take a look on how you put this thing together.
Before we get started on how to build it, I'm just going to give you a close-up of how the antenna looks, and this is how the elements are held in place. A hole is drilled through the arrow shaft, and placed into the arrow shaft is this wire insulation, and I just put some tape here on each side so the wire insulation doesn't slide around, and then the music wire is just slid into the wire insulation, and the friction between the two holds the wire in place. We have RG8X coaxial cable here, and it's held to the shaft using just ties, and we have the connector here. It's a BNC connector, and this is how we load the antenna right here. Basically the coax splits, so we have the shielded side going to one part and the shield going to one part, and the inner part of the coax going to another part of the driven element, and it is just connected using these alligator clips. And we have the last element right there, and that's how it is all held into place. Now at the end here, to extend the handle and also to protect the elements when they are packed inside the antenna, we have a piece of fishing rod right here. Basically, I just cut the fishing rod in a place that it would slide onto the arrow shaft snugly so it would stay on. And then at the end of the fishing rod, I just used some tape to close it up so the elements don't slide out. But let's take a look at what you need to do to construct this.
Now some materials you'll need to construct the antenna include 1 aluminum or carbon fiber arrow shaft, 1 BNC connector, RG8X coaxial cable, about 3 feet of that, 4 rods of 0.025 music wire, which usually come in lengths of 3 feet per rod, scrap insulation from 20 gauge wire, 2 small alligator clips, and some helpful things that would make this easier would be a drill press, a small scrap piece of plexiglass, and an old lightweight hollow fishing pole. Here are the dimensions for the antenna. Measured from the reflector, the driven elements are 13 inches away, and the director is 25 inches away. The reflector is 41 inches in length, each driven element is 19.35 inches in length, and the director is 36 inches in length. And the RG8X coax cable is directly fed to the driven elements, so there aren't any fancy sort of matching things, it's just directly connected. Here we have the arrow shaft and the 3 pieces of music wire. The first step in preparing the arrow is to cut off the fletching, which I did with a pocket knife. After cutting the fletching off, you then remove the tip of the nock. This allows you to store the music wire inside the arrow shaft. The next step is to drill the holes into the arrow shaft. It is important that these holes follow a straight line, so use a straight edge when marking the holes, and also that they're parallel to one another. That is why I use the drill press and the clamps, to make sure that these holes are perfectly parallel with each other, so the elements line up with one another. Now the drill size you will use will be based off the insulation you use. So measure the insulation and then use the drill bit the next size down. Now music wire usually comes in lengths of 36 inches. However, one of your elements, the reflector, is 41 inches in length. So to make it the 41 inches in length, I decided to solder these two pieces together because soldering is all I had available to me. So I use the clamps to make sure they are lined up well, then I use solder to solder them together. I then wrap the outside in tape to make sure they stay together. The next step is to create the wiring harness that attaches to the driven elements of the antenna. Begin by removing the first 2 inches of the jacket on the coaxial cable. Then create a small hole using needle nose pliers in the outer conductor, being sure to not tear any of the outer conductor. Then begin to pull out the center dielectric material. Pull the dielectric material completely through this hole so you have 2 separate elements. Now remove about ½ inch of the dielectric, exposing the inner conductor. Then with the plexiglass you can drill 2 holes that are about 1 inch apart. These prevent the wires from short-circuiting by touching each other. Take the outer conductor and the inner conductor through each one of these holes, and then attach the alligator clips. You can solder the alligator clips to the wire to make a more permanent installation. And now you've completed the wiring harness. The next step is to attach the BNC connector. Be sure to get a connector that is designed for RG8X cable and follow the connector's instructions for installation. For my installation, I settled with using a BNC connector bought at Radio Shack that is actually meant for use with RG59. Though this is not the best setup, I made it work. This involved trimming off more than half of the center conductor strands and twisting the remaining strands into one stiff piece. A shortcut around this is to buy coax with connectors already installed.
Now after putting on the BNC connector and putting it on the cable and having everything hooked up, it's important to make sure you don't have any shorts or that you have continuity from one end to the other. So I have this tester here where basically it lights up if the current is flowing continuously. So I can touch the outside of the BNC connector, which should be connected to the shield. So this is the line going to the shield, connected to the outside, and you can see that it lights up. So that's good. When I touch the outside of the BNC connector to the inner part of the coaxial cable, it shouldn't light up. And it doesn't, which means we don't have a short. Same thing by touching these two together. They don't light up. Now one thing I could do is clip this to the inside part of the coax and then touch the inside part of the cable, the connector right here, and it also lights up. So we know everything is continuous and we don't have any shorts in the cable, which is a good thing. So now you just finished your contacts you wanted to make on your mountaintop or while you were backpacking, and you want to disassemble the antenna. Well, it's really quick and easy. Right now I have it hooked up to my handheld radio, but we'll just pop this off. Comes off, it's a BNC connector. Then we will slide off this backside right here. That just slips right off. And then the elements just slide right out of the wire insulation that they are placed in. We unclip the middle elements from the alligator clips. These pop out real easily. Last thing we do is we slide the last element out. And then the elements are just stored inside the arrow shaft, which is hollow. So then you just slide the elements in here, and all of them fit. And one of the things you're going to see is that some of the elements are going to be longer than the arrow shaft. So then we just take this piece of fishing rod I have here that's hollow that I cut out, and it'll slide over the elements that stick out to protect them. And it just slips right on the arrow shaft here, and it's a perfect fit, nice and snug. It'll stay on there. And now you have your Yagi antenna completely collapsed. Well, that's all I have for you. Good luck building your antenna, and thank you to KD5 IVP for designing this antenna. I'll see you on the air.